Hi, welcome to the webinar today. Hey, Barbara. Hey, Jim. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Good.
Good. Well, just for everybody watching, welcome to the webinar. I'm a student moderator today, so I've had the opportunity. I work with Professor James Oldroyd on a project called iLabs, and I actually am able, just to give a little background on myself, I'm able to TA for a class called Global Hub here at BYU, where we actually have hands-on experience doing business, specifically international business. So that's been a great experience for me, and I just want to turn the time over to Barbara and Jim to kind of present themselves.
Hi, I'm Barbara Ribbons. I'm the professor of international business and management, and I'm the director of the Carson and Aris Varner International Business Institute at Illinois State University. And I've been using iLab during the summer and this semester. So I think at this point I have used 3 pieces of it.
That's great. So my name is James Oldroyd. I go by Jim Oldroyd. I founded iLabs. I'm a professor of strategy and international business at Brigham Young University. When I finished my PhD at Northwestern at the Kellogg School, I went to took a job in Seoul, South Korea. I wanted to have an international experience, and so went over there and lived 5 years working at Sungkyun Kwan University, or SKK GSB, which is Samsung. The foundation bought the university, so it was a really cool time as they were building out an international MBA program. Worked there for 5 years. Went to the Ohio State University as an international business professor, and then now I'm at Brigham Young University as strategy and IB. It's great to be with you.
Yeah, Jim and Barbara, thanks for introducing yourselves. And just today, I wanted to start off with this idea of like why iLabs and why doing international business simulations, right? Because there's a lot of other simulations and a lot of other projects we can be working on. So I just wanted to ask first, Jim, do you want to kind of talk about like I guess your brainchild, your baby, kind of how that came to be?
Sure. So as I taught international business for years, I became increasingly more frustrated because I felt like we were talking theoretical, and I wanted something that was real, something that would meet the students where they are, something that was be engaging. I feel like students now, much to my disappointment, are very bored very easily. Like they don't engage unless you. So anyway, wanted to find something where I could meet them where they are with content, and so the simulations are, I think, in a very interactive way to meet the students where they are, keep it engaging for them. Second, I think that simulations I love because you can fail in a simulation and there's no like real world consequences for that, and so it allows them to have repeated failures, learn from those failures. If I can, let me just. I think this is actually a really critical point in the world history where the whole world's moving towards nationalism. And as an international business professor, I feel like finally, or maybe not finally, but they need us. The world needs international business professors to engage in students and get them to understand the world, understand global business, so that we need excellently trained global business leaders to open up the world again. And anyway, so I just wanted something very real, something dynamic, something they could use, something practical. The way I judge whether a class is a good class is the energy at the end of class. And when you run these simulations, tremendous energy at the end of class. When the next professor in the room's kicking you out, that was a good class. And when you run these simulations, that's the kind of energy that I feel from the class.
Great. Yeah, and Barbara, you said you kind of started using iLabs about 2 semesters ago. So I'm just curious personally, because I'm actually the one who met you and we're able to connect. What kind of made you interested, I guess, in iLabs, and kind of how's that experience been in your classroom for the last 2 semesters?
Yeah, part of what captivated me was the realness that Jim kind of just talked about, and that's I'm always looking for something that is more real, something that they can get their hands dirty. A big focus of our IB program here is developing a global mindset And the best way you can do that is by giving them exposures that are messy, that are not just a cookbook, basically, something that they have to really grapple with because it will be more memorable. And it gets them outside their bubble. And that's what I felt iLabs had the potential to do when I first reached out. So I've used it in two different classes now. And the last segment is in process right now in my class, actually.
Yeah.
So I first used the cultural component this summer in an MBA class. I was teaching the MBA strategy class, and I'd heard little mumblings because we have a lot of international students in there that understanding a little more about culture and how it connects to strategic leadership would be really helpful for them. And so I thought, yeah, I do an international week, so why not? Why not force them to think about different cultures? So I used it with the MBA students, and several of them actually said it was one of the most meaningful pieces of the whole strategy class, which was interesting because I was also doing a simulation that they had for weeks. They had to run a business. But the cultural part really resonated for some of them. And a couple people talked about how thinking and comparing cultures helped them solidify some things that they vaguely thought about, but hadn't really paid attention to. And so basically I used the tool to literally, they had to watch 3 of them and then write a comparison. How would those 3 different countries shape their strategic leadership? The other class I'm using them in actually is the other extreme, which is it's the Intro to International Business class. And it's been kind of interesting because using the same cross-cultural element, I've gotten positive reactions, but different reactions from those starting the whole adventure. Because a lot of times they would, in their writing about it, they were saying, I never thought about my own culture. I never thought about how important culture was. And so now it's prepped them for future globally focused classes to think about that element. And we actually have an entire semester on culture class. So that hopefully they've now kind of got bitten by the bug. I want to learn more. I want to understand more about how this works. The interesting one for me was the financial one, looking at currency exchange, because I told my students the first thing you have to do when you sign on is you have to move all your money out of US dollars. You can move some back later, but you need to get everything out of US dollars initially. And it just so happened that in the foreign exchange and the timing we did it, they got a certain amount of money, and then the US dollars started fluctuating because of government shutdown and different things going on. And so it was really interesting because they're like going, I thought US dollars were the most stable currency in the world, and
It's just
doesn't look like that's what's happening. I'm like, this is why using real data and understanding how messy the world is, because I couldn't anticipate when I picked those dates that was going to happen. But it was a really good learning experience for them, that it might be stable for 20 years, but it might not be stable when you make a change based on
the 1 week you have your assignment, it might not be stable, right?
So it was a really good eye-opener for them. And a lot of them, one of their big conclusions was it's hard. You know, when you're going on a vacation to Mexico and you're thinking about moving pesos, that sounds so simple. But when you're a business with big dollars, thinking longer term, it's much more complicated. And I think that simulation really brought it home for them.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of what I've heard Jim say a lot that's kind of like interesting to me, at least, is like, you're like, so many times like students want like the recipe, you know, and it's not that easy, you know. And I think Jim, like when I have talked with him and other professors, like my favorite thing he says is just like, I like to see students fail. And I like when they use iLabs, it's hard, because the real world is actually harder than a lot of assignments. I like to say an A at university is usually like a C+ in the business world, maybe not even usable, right? So that
Right.
it's I loved how you talked about that. But I guess
Barbara, Jeff, I can just jump in real quick. I have a very similar experience on that foreign exchange lab. You think you know what's going to happen with currency, and in the reality, in the short term, you don't. There can be a civil crisis, which blows up the exchange rate. But what I love is that students. I think this gives them a taste of really the complexity of currency and the complexity of global business. You're moving currency. The foreign exchange market is many times as big as any other financial market every day, and it's really important. And most of us don't have a great deep grasp of that. So I think this is a really fun way for them to kind of finally start to see it for what it is. So.
Well, and I coupled it with some data from a local company that they monitored 23 currencies on a daily basis.
That's cool. That's
and
really cool.
Suddenly the students are like, whoa, that's a lot of work. No wonder they have a whole team that has to be doing this, because it's not easy. So it was a great reality check.
That's great.
Yeah, well, I guess just because we're talking about, foreign exchange, Jim, do you want to kind of, I can play the demos.
Sure.
And do you
want to just turn it on the demo and let's kind of talk through. So the whole, as Barbara just outlined, that was literally my vision as we created this lab, was to put students in a safe place where they could change. We give them a fake amount of money, but then they change with using real exchange rates. So I don't know what's going to happen. Barbara doesn't know what's going to happen. No one knows what's going to happen. And as they get in and start to make trades, they, you can think, oh, the Korean won is going to appreciate relative to the dollar, and that may be true in the long run. But it's in the 2 weeks of the exercise or the 1 week of the exercise, that might not be true at all. And so there's a really, so you can get in here, you can select which currencies you want to use. He's clicking here, so we have different presets you can use, 23 currencies. You come in, you create the class, you give an access code for students. You can just copy that and email that out to everybody. You can select your start dates for when you want this to begin. Here's Truman's now sending out showing the scores for everybody. You can wait. So I ask students to do a strategy as they begin, so you can weight the grades. The grading is all done for you in this simulation. So you can look at, how much you want to, what percent of the grades you want to weight. I tend to weight more of this exercise based on participation than outcome, just because students sometimes get frustrated as the currencies move and they're like, I didn't know, so, but it's, that's part of it, part of what I'm trying to get across. And so anyway, it's a very, very quick way. You spin up a class, you get an access code, you choose which currencies you want to use, you choose what dates you want to do for the exchange, copy that code over, send it out to students, and then you're up and running. And what I also love about it is that it evaluates the students or ranks them relative to everyone else in the class. I usually play along and show them that even as a professor, it's really hard to predict what's going to happen to exchange rates. And anyway.
Yeah. And just kind of as Jim was talking about that, if you guys want to just demo it yourselves, those who are watching, you can scan any of these QR codes throughout the whole webinar, and it'll create a free account for you. So then you can go and demo it yourself and create it. But Barbara, I think it was kind of interesting when we were setting up your classroom, you actually had a special family moment, where you actually had to leave. I thought that was interesting. I've never heard of it being used that way, but it seemed like a pretty good use case for also professors who might be having, personal things happening during the semester.
Yes, I had a life moment this semester. I've actually had a couple, surprisingly, but the big one was my daughter had a baby and needed me to be away for a little bit for helping her with her 19-month-old when the new baby came. And so I was able to kind of prep them and get them all set up. And then a big part of their job while I was gone was to play with this. And so it was a really nice thing because it kept them busy. I mean, there were things to figure out, there were things to pay attention to. And I knew I would be able to see what their active learning was like because the program monitored what they were doing. So it made my short absence, I knew I was still having meaningful learning happening.
That's great.
Yeah. And I don't know, I think it's just interesting how like there's ways that like we don't even imagine as, like creators and doing it. And you're like, oh yeah, I'm just going to be able to use this, step away and make sure my students will have a great learning experience. The government will shut down. No, only in the US, right? So yeah, anyways, thanks for sharing that. And I guess just to keep things moving, we don't want to keep everybody on too long. We can move on to the Cultural Intelligence Lab, which I guess we already talked a lot about, but one thing I wanted to call out is, Jim will kind of demo this, is that it's all native professionals that are coaching them, and it's validated by multiple business professionals within that country. So anyways, I'll let Jim kind of take it away.
So before we start that, Truman, let me just quickly introduce this. So Cultural Intelligence Lab uses Erin Meyer's 8 dimensions of culture and embeds students in an interactive exercise where they are put in a scenario with a business leader from that country, and then they have to navigate this scenario across all 8 of the cultural dimensions. So Truman, let's show them here. Take a quick demo.
Welcome China. Welcome to South Africa.
Namaste. Welcome to India.
Bienvenue. Welcome to France.
Welcome to the United States.
So we have different countries, and you can, right now we have 12 countries that are built out.
Bem-vindo ao Brasil.
I'll take you to
You're about
Brazil
to
here.
jump into an interactive simulation with me, a true Brazilian. And if I tease you a little bit, please don't take it personal. Don't go around crying to your mom. That's how we do around here. And you can clearly see that I have more hair than Vin Diesel, but this is Brazil. Welcome home. When we're talking about communication in Brazil, we need to be aware about how interesting it can be. Brazilians are very high context, many times indirect, and flexible in their conversations. And be ready to a warm conversation when we're talking with us. It's not about what you say, but how you say it.
So then after
You're
that,
having a meeting with your
ask a
team
question, and they have to figure out what's the right answer.
about a new project. There, you're going to set expectations about what needs to be done. How would you have this conversation with them?
And so then this, student selects an answer. Oh, if they got it wrong, the correct answer is highlighted, and then
Pensa, meu rapaz,
the instructor comes
pensa.
back and
Who
tells
do you
them.
think you're dealing with? ChatGPT. You can't just leave a prompt and expect that everything will be right.
So to do this, you just come in and create a session name. You can add that section. Then you can choose. So that's just copying the code for students. You can select which countries you want to include in the session. So it sounds like Barbara, you did 3 countries when you did it. You can it's just simple as toggling them on and toggling them off, choosing which dates you want them to be available for. And it's really that easy. Barbara, I love how you had them come and do a thought exercise after, which was the comparison. That's a wonderful extension to really build out the learning experience. Students love this. It's very engaging. It's point and click, and then it's graded for you as well. So we have it auto graded. Populates that for you. So to do it, you can add a student. Truman's adding himself as a student in the class, and then it goes through, and as they engage, it shows you how well they do. And a lot of folks are using this before they do study abroads as part of an international business class, or as Barbara used it, just a good introduction to culture. Which is, I feel like a failure to understand culture is leading to failures in business right now, because we're not sensitive to what's going on around the world.
Yeah. Well, I think it's kind of interesting. I've talked with a lot of professors and they're like, is this for undergrad students? It's probably not for like grad students, you know? And I guess I wanted to ask you, Barbara, because the first class you used it in, you were talking about how it's, you know, you're using it with your grad students. And a lot of people are like, really? And even hearing your experience between undergrads and grad students, like that was the most interesting part for me, because I have actually seen undergrad students using it personally. And a lot of them actually get like offended because they're not like used to that, you know. And then I just would love to hear kind of like the, you know, juxtaposition or kind of your insights on how it's beneficial for each kind of student group.
Yeah, I mean, the grad students, I think it worked because it was not like a centerpiece. I think if I made that too big of a thing, they might be like, this is too easy. But I tied it to a specific content. How would you manage strategically something very specific? Because these were graduating MBA students. So it was not only MBA, but it was at the end of their MBA. So I kind of framed it as okay, in case you've not thought about culture a lot, it has a lot to do with how successful you are strategically. And in class, I talked about negotiation and I gave them managing people and managing partnerships across borders, all the different reasons this could be important. So I kind of set it up to be a valuable thing. And then I had them process it in a writing afterwards. And I think that wrapper made them feel like, oh, it was kind of fun. It's kind of easy and it's kind of fun. And yeah, a fair number of them got 100% on at least one. Very few got 100% on everything, though. And I thought that was kind of interesting. But for undergrads, I think it's more about awareness. Undergrads may not have traveled as much. They might not have thought as much about the big picture. And so there I'm pretty much just setting up as, here's an intro to get you thinking about the practicalities of what global business looks like.
Well, and Barbara, I love that. Like, you know, really, this is giving them a framework to think about how cultures might vary. You know, and Erin Myers has the dimensions are great, but this like makes it real, so they can see across cultures how those are manifest in different ways. And you know, I love, Barbara, how you're using it as like, you know, let's introduce you to cross-cultural strategic thinking or cross-cultural understanding. And then we have others that are using it very specifically for, I'm going to India with a study abroad group, and I want them to really understand it. So they might even assign them to until they get 100%. You're gonna go through this until you get 100%, because we want you to understand that specific culture.
And I think that's part of the power of all three of the tools I've used now is they're very nice standalone, but you can wrap them in so many different ways for so many different purposes. And that's a beautiful tool, a tool that can be used in more than one setting. So
that's great. Truman, why don't we jump to Market Entry Lab and just show them a bit of Market Entry Lab. So can I just, before we start a quick demo, let me just describe this. So Market Entry Lab was a tool we created trying to help students determine which country to take a product to. So imagine we actually partnered with the World Trade Center Utah. They were working with businesses that were saying, hey, we have this, we have a product, we're trying to take it international, or we're trying to globalize, where should we go? Which is a very common question. And so we made the Market Entry Lab as a tool to help, in this case, students understand that question. And it uses real data. This is based on real data. So we call it a lab, but in reality, this is a commercial product. You can make actual decisions based off of this and where to internationalize a product. We've made it so you can adjust the home country to be any home country. And Truman, why don't we show them what it looks like inside? So you come here and you start out, basically, you have to figure out what the HS code or the harmonized system code is for the product. there's a great website for this, U.S. Census Bureau. We have the link highlighted there. You can just click on that if you need it. We're going to use the product code for steel kitchenware, which is in the example here. And then you literally just hit next step. It's gone out now and collected all the data on this specific HS code. It brings it in. And then, there's 3 dimensions we look at: the market potential, the ease of doing business, and then the economic and political risk. And you can toggle them up or down based on what the company's specific needs are. And then there's subweights underneath. So you can have a very general answer, and then you can have a very specific answer tailored to what product you're trying to take it. And then it adjusts which countries it suggests are the most attractive markets to go to. Again, you can click on market potential, ease of business, or risk, and adjust those underlying weights. You can use this very high level, or you can dig in very detailed into each of those sub-elements, depending on, again, as Barbara said, these are flexible, so what context you're in. If you want to create an account and play around with it, here's a QR code you can click on.
Yeah, so I know, Barbara, you're in the middle of it right now. So I don't know, you probably don't fully know kind of what your students thought of it, but based on kind of like the setup, and even if you don't have a lot to speak on specifically for the Market Entry Lab, what was your process like just setting up all of the labs in general?
Yeah, some of my students have completed it and some haven't. And I'm using this as a prep. They have to do this first, and then they will use your tool in their group project where they have to compare 3 countries. So I'm having them look at one comparison on their own to make sure they all grasp it, and then they will have to take it out and build a presentation that they're trying to sell what their choice would be. But these tools are easy to use. It's easy to set up. There's flexibility. You control timing. You control, in a way, how complex it is based on how else you're using it, or how many countries you're choosing, or how many currencies. So there's a lot of flexibility to make it into what you specifically want, but they're all based on real world learning, getting their hands dirty. And I think that's the piece that's been most powerful for me.
That's great. I've been using Market Entry Lab in a similar way, Barbara. So I actually use it in a strategy class when we're talking about international strategy. And, if you're thinking about market entry approach, so I do this up front, and then they pick the countries, and then I say, okay, now give me the market entry strategy for that. Mm-hmm. And then also when I'm doing it in an international business class, I have them pick a product, they're in teams of 5, and then each one picks a different country and has to really dig into that country. Then they kind of fight it out and pick one country that then they create the full, market entry internationalization plan for.
Yeah, and one thing I want to point out is how big is your Intro to International Business class, Barbara?
30.
30, and Jim, you're planning on using it in your strategy class in January.
200. I have 200 students. It works. I think it works with 5 or with, actually I'll be teaching 300 next semester with it. So
yes, that's also I think something interesting is it's very scalable. It's like an accordion. You can kind of use it to any, in any class size. And one thing is a lot of professors kind of use it in the same way like that both of them are using it. They usually do like a case study first, which we have in our simulation, and you could explore it yourself if you guys want to grab an account or schedule a call with us after. And then we like to apply it to the real world. So we have a couple other universities using it in almost like the identical same way. They get trained in like the case study, and then they're like, okay, go find either I'll give you these countries to compare, or go find a real CEO and actually consult for them, because the case study actually teaches students how to be that consultant, right? And that's where we designed it originally, was with the World Trade Center of Utah, which, they were consulting companies locally here in Utah. And I think that it's just kind of interesting how it's a tool that literally was built with the World Trade Center, and it works really well. I found it. Yeah.
This isn't an academic project in the sense that it's real data. This is based on real trade data, real risk data, real market potential data. And so, I think of it as a lab that teaches students in a real setting, like how you would actually internationalize a product, or how you could internationalize a product.
Yeah. So I guess kind of for the last 15 minutes, let's break into some questions from the viewers and different professors. So I wanted to start with this one from Rhonda Bunnell from Michigan State University. And she said, how many lessons or labs do you have?
Yeah. So can you show the homepage there, Truman? Do you have that? So right now we have the Cultural Intelligence Lab, which is trains them on culture. We have the Foreign Exchange Lab, which trains them on foreign exchange. We have the Market Entry Lab, which we just showed you. We also have a Global Compass Lab that's really close to coming out, and this is I don't know if you're familiar with BAFA, the old exercise, but this is a 2.0 of BAFA. So it puts students in two different cultures. So the answer to her question is right now we have 3, soon to be 4, and many more, hopefully, down the road. We also, what you're seeing in the portal here is also an iLabs course kit, and this course kit helps you do your Canvas integration and stuff, so that, the goal is to make this as seamless and easy to use as possible.
Yeah.
And it is very easy. I've once in a blue moon, I'll say, wait, I'm confused by this. And I, give a shout out and they go, oh, look here. And it's very well thought out. So it is very easy to use.
Thanks. Yeah. So I guess I'll move on to our next question. And one was about just like the pricing model. So like, what is the cost per student, per instructor? Is it institution wide? Kind of based on that, like what's the cost structure there? So
Truman, why don't you answer that?
Yeah, I'll take it. I guess I know that maybe the best. So basically the cost structure there is it's $10 for an individual lab. And then if you guys want to use the bundle, it's $16 to use all of the labs together. And there's different ways for the bundle. In the US, we have generally a lot of professors have their students pay for it. But internationally, a lot of institutions will purchase them in bulk. So they know they'll have 40 students in their class, and then they'll buy 40 licenses for their students. We also work out deals with institutions where the entire institution can license the lab so that they could use it in their entire program whenever, wherever they want. And that usually is done through the library or maybe through like the business school or things like that. So that cost when you do an institution purchase is generally a lot cheaper, especially based on your institution size based per student. So that's the pricing model behind that.
Yeah, and Barbara, is it reasonably priced?
Yeah, I feel during the summer I had my MBA students just doing one, and nobody even blinked at $10. So I don't think students see it as a huge issue.
Yeah, that's great. And we tried to be very, very careful to have this be value priced in the sense that, if you're playing a Harvard simulation, they're $18 a piece. Barbara, you said you're doing a longer term strategy simulation. I've used one as well, and it's $50 plus. So
right.
we've tried to make it so that these are affordable.
Yeah. And I think also affordable, but kind of going back to the last question, like how often can you use it? I feel like you can also use it for a pretty good amount of your semester too, especially with the bundle. It's a couple of weeks, right? You used it for about like 3 weeks of your semester, right, Barbara?
Yeah, I did. I kind of interspersed them. I did the culture one toward the beginning when we hit that. And then the foreign exchange was in the middle. And now we're doing the market entry. So.
Okay, cool. So I guess I'll shoot to the next question now. And the next one comes from Lisa Anderson Thomas. And she says, how do you prepare your students before introducing the foreign exchange and market entry lab? How much academic knowledge do students need to know before engaging with the lab, and how do you provide that? I guess I don't know the answer to this one, so I'll leave it to the PhDs in the room.
Barbara, do you want to? I'm happy to go.
I have a chapter on financial financial aspects of, I was actually grabbing my syllabus, what is it called? International Monetary System and Financial Forces. And it introduced the idea of foreign exchange, talked about what it was, talked a little bit about how they're built. So when we hit that chapter, I said, okay, you're going to get some hands-on work. Now you know what it is. You're going to do some playing with it. And I set the grading up where if they did a certain number of trades, they automatically got a B. And then it was competition to get an A.
That's great.
So you had to, there was a little piece of the grade that was based on how well you did. And I think that worked. But that's how I set that one up. I just used the chapter and then highlighted some key things in the lecture that was given the day that it opened up and they dove in.
That's great. So, and I do it, I kind of teach the PEST framework. So when I'm in the economics section, I'll usually pause, spend a little bit of time talking about the importance of exchange rates, as an economic principle, and how some countries have relatively more economic risk because of exchange rates, i.e. Argentina or other countries that have, maybe been, anyway, so we talk about that, and then I'll have them engage in the exercise. And then I actually, like Barbara, I come back and do a financial chapter later on, but they've already kind of been through the foreign exchange exercise, and then it's like, oh, we get this, so I send them in a little more naive, I guess, than Barbara, who's a bit more. Market entry. So she also asked about market entry. With market entry, I spend a little bit of time talking about the importance of globalizing a product or taking a product international, and then I don't know, I guess I'm not very good because I throw them in again quite naively and have them start playing with the tool and figuring out, well, why would it say China's the right, the top country, or why would it say Singapore is the top, the country, and then we do a little bit more retrospective analysis of, well, okay, so why would that be the case? And then I build out a full assignment around it, but I have them start playing up front kind of naively. How do you introduce it, Barbara?
I also had a chapter that was called Global Market Assessment and Entry. And so I opened it up parallel to them working through that chapter material. And just, the book is therefore your reference material. And it's not identically worded, but it's close enough that they made the jump pretty easily.
That's great.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of interesting there's multiple ways of using them, where I feel like Jim's motto is like, throw them in, throw them in the deep water, like don't let them go in the shallow end of the pool. But I think it works in both ways, right? Because it all depends on what you want as a professor. If you kind of want to like bring them in, or if you want to just be like, like where they're just like literally just experiencing it. It's like almost like a workplace environment. Like your boss comes up to you and it's more like, okay, this is what you do. Finish it, right? Go. Yeah, the biggest word, and from when I had internships in Chicago was go, figure it out, So I think that's interesting. But I guess let's just wrap up. I know, we'll wrap up really quick with just this last question, which is, if a professor wants to start using iLabs, what steps do they need to take?
Okay.
So I guess both of you guys should answer from, different perspectives. Yeah.
I think calling and doing a walkthrough of things was really helpful for me. I think we spent like half an hour that first time just sort of stepping through and looking together at, you gave me kind of a guided tour, and that really helped me feel pretty confident. And then, I just needed I had a question here, a question there, but I was pretty much good to go after that half hour. And it helped me then think about creatively what I could do with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like we've worked. I mean, my whole motto is make things so simple that there's no instructions needed. But I do think that walkthrough is incredibly helpful. Truman, do we have a link where people could jump in, sign up for a walkthrough? They wanted to see more. Yeah. So, Truman, why don't you answer as well? Like, what's the best way to reach out to the team?
Well, I mean, the first thing is just scheduling like a call with us. And basically, it takes, it's like a 30-minute call for you to kind of understand, implement. And then, I don't know, like Barbara, how long would you say it took to set up for you? I mean,
15 minutes.
yeah. So it doesn't take that
It's
long to
pretty
set up. Right?
straightforward.
Um,
Once you
so-
kind of have the idea of how you want to wrap it, because there are so many ways to wrap it, I think once you have the concept, it's easy to set it up.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're still at this point in the webinar, you probably have a couple of ideas how you want to wrap it. So, you just make the account, you open it up, and really, I mean, you don't even need to hop on a call with us technically, but we always welcome having professors call with us, and we can give them ideas on how their professors used it. So yeah, it's super easy. I mean, it's 30-minute call with us, or I guess if you watch this webinar, you probably understand it enough. 15 minutes of implementation, and then your students can start using it. So
I do think it's helpful to jump on with Truman and have him give you a test drive of it, just so it's kind of it's helpful to just like quickly get a grasp of what the simulations are doing.
And depending on the schedules, Jim sometimes pops on the calls, so you could get a special treat from the founder, the PhD perspective. But
If I'm not teaching, I'll hop on.
yeah.
Let me just say that in closing here, I feel like we have a very important job as international business educators in helping the world open back up. I mean, we're seeing so many, it's kind of scary, the shift towards nationalism, protectionism, all these forces against globalization. And I think correctly training global leaders, it will be the solution to that. And hopefully these exercises, these labs, bring an element of reality, an element of excitement, and engage our students in a way where they'll become those global leaders that we need. So anyway.
Yeah. Do you have any
world?
Yeah. Do you have any closing thoughts, Barbara? Or
I encourage everybody to do a test drive, play with it a little bit. If you get in there and play with it, you'll think of ways to use it because it's good, solid material.
Thanks. Yeah, and so I guess we'll just wrap up. I just wanted to thank everybody for coming on the webinar and kind of just echoing, especially like what Jim said, is like the why behind this is that we are like the Global Whitmore Business Center here at BYU, right? So like we like bleed international, right? And for me, as I've been a part of this as a student, I didn't realize how international I was. I grew up every year going to Montreal, Canada, because that's where my mom was born. I'm a dual citizen, and I didn't realize how much that had affected me in my life until I started learning about international business. And like, oh my goodness, like when I'm learning about Hofstede and Aaron Myers, I'm like, wait, I'm not the US or Canada. I'm like a mix because my mom raised me and my dad from the US raised me, So I think it's really interesting because I think the first step of globalization is curiosity. And I think that's what Barbara really talked about a lot with her, especially her undergrad students. It's like you kind of like just get students exposed and they're like, oh, this is interesting. Like I should like maybe look at the global news. And anyways, so that as a student perspective, that's kind of what the labs have done for me. Because before I started working on this project, I didn't know Hofstede. I didn't know market entry strategies, except for maybe my intro to marketing class where they flashed it on the PowerPoint for 2 minutes, So for me, it's just been a really big blessing, actually, just to give that as a student perspective in it. So,
and from a professor's perspective, for me, the big benefit is, I get to change the world and help create global business leaders, but I also get energy from the class. Like when, it's just because these are interactive and real, there's just an energy brought to class that, is very beneficial for me.
I mean, even the thing that sparked the webinar, we actually didn't talk about it too much, but me and Jim were in a meeting about like a week ago, and it was he mentioned how like students aren't reading the cases anymore that he's assigning, and I think it's interesting. He was talking like 20 years ago, students would come to class and they're like talking about it, and
they were prepped. They were prepared for class.
Right? They actually read the case. Today, you go to GPT, you download the PDF, you get the summary, and then when the professor comes up, 80% of the class has read a summary of the case, which kind of defeats the whole purpose. So I think that's interesting. Like with iLabs too, is like that's another way of kind of interact. Like I guess like a new word, interactifying the like cases and interactifying learning, so that students are like moving toggles, they're moving levers as they're doing that learning process. So it's not just a simple, okay, I got this assignment on Canvas or Blackboard, copy. Oh wait, let me just like take out the M dashes so that my professor doesn't know, doesn't catch the, So, anyways, that's I guess closing thoughts. And thanks, Barbara, so much for taking the time. Thanks, Jim, but especially to Barbara because she's a guest today. So thanks so much for taking the time.
For sure.
Okay. Well,
Take care.
thanks everybody in the audience, and